Triple Shot Mindset.
A lot of us, when we get into an argument, we tend to want to fight for our own point of view.
Yep.
Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Instead of looking at the big picture for what we were fighting for. I've been told, not by myself, but by a lot of people.
Your reflection.
A lot
in
of
the
people
mirror.
tell me that I'm very grounded when it comes to certain situations or arguments. And they say, how do you do it? Why don't you just fly off the handle? Why don't you fight for what you want? Why don't you call names? Why don't you, dismiss the other person? And I think I saw this online. One of those guys that I'm following, I forgot his name. I'm going to actually tag him down here. But he talks about an argument being like a relationship being like a thread. And there may be a knot in it. And the more I pull this way and she pulls that way, that knot's just going to become harder and harder to undo. So the goal is to let go and undo that knot. And I think by keeping in mind the big picture, for me, for example, is to keep it civil with my ex-wife because I want a loving, symbiotic relationship kind of a thing, and I want my kids to experience that, not come from a broken home. So every time there's a fight or a disagreement, I make sure that I don't pull on my end of the string. She can pull, but I try not to pull myself because I know it's just going to make it harder to unravel one day. So the first tip would be to remember the big picture. If I remember the big picture, why I'm in a relationship with this person or why I'm at this job or why I'm doing certain things, if I remember my why before my ego starts coming out, then I have a better chance of unraveling that knot. Because the more knots are added and the more we pull on our side thinking we're right, it's just going to create a chaotic environment. So my first tip to keep it grounded is to think of the big picture. Why am I doing this? What's the benefit of this relationship I'm trying to build? What's the benefit of this job, this decision? And go from there.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That, I think, assumes that the person in the conflict has consciously chosen that situation, which I love. What about in situations where the person is scapegoating the other one? They already hate the situation they're in. How do they see the bigger picture?
They don't have to see the bigger picture. As long as one of us sees a bigger picture, I think that's all that's important.
Yeah.
So for me, the other thing I do, I put obviously ego aside and I try to help the situation. And if that person on the other side doesn't want to, they're just trying to egg you on, the worst thing you can do is to participate in that. Because now that you have the big picture in mind, and you're putting ego out, then therefore you don't want to engage in that kind of a conversation. So you pause, you take a break, you walk away, and then come back and say, let's fix this. Because neither you or I are going to benefit from this constant fighting.
Yeah. I wonder about conflict myself because I will freely admit that I'm relatively conflict averse. You, I was telling you earlier, have helped inspire me to not seek out conflict, but not be afraid of it anymore.
Yeah.
So when it happens, I'm like, hey, let's go, like, fine. But I don't go running around looking for it. I do know folks who go around looking for it. And I know folks who are so sensitive that if the other person insults them in just the right way, the ego takes over and there's no bigger picture anymore for them.
Yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you hit me where it hurts. I'm just going to rip you a new hole or multiples now. Does this just mean, per your advice, like, okay, if you're that person who's super sensitive to the trigger or who's actually looking for conflict, you're probably not going to see the bigger picture then because you're like too wrapped up in the joy of the fight.
I think last time in our last podcast, I talked about that I seek pain, right?
Yeah.
Now I seek my triggers
Mm.
to see why do I react certain ways, or why did she saying something or he saying something affected me to that point. But I also try to have awareness about when those things are said to me. When, for example, someone punches me under the belt, I take a deep breath, I pause, and I think to myself, if I go toe to toe, it's not going to happen. You know, they had this saying that an eye for an eye
Makes the whole world blind.
Right. So that's my philosophy. So even if someone says something, and yes, I'm human, sometimes I want to have that knee-jerk reaction. As soon as I start to say it, I take a deep breath. I say, no, I'm not going to say it. And you have to have that much awareness and control over yourself, because the bigger picture has to be so important to you.
Yeah.
And you have to be so emotionally invested in it that nothing's going to derail you.
Yeah.
So put ego out, remember the big picture, and pause.
Pause.
Mm-hmm. Even if you have to pause for 10 minutes, walk away and come back, take a walk around the block, take a few deep breaths, and ask yourself, for example, ex-wife. At one point, we were best friends. At one point, we were in love. So why should I put her down now? Because that title has changed. Why should I mess up someone's soul or feelings because now I'm no longer a husband? So pause. And then the last thing that's very important that we should discuss this is listen without defending.
Ooh.
Speak without offending.
Ooh. So basically, say nothing.
No, just
Kidding.
say things that are constructive
Yeah.
to the argument, to the point, to the goal that you were trying to reach.
Okay, can we have an example, like a role play?
So, for example, if I tell my mom, hey, you know, why are you eating that stupid chocolate, right?
Yep.
And then she says, oh, well, you're the one who bought it for me. This is not going to go anywhere fast,
Yeah.
right? So instead of being offensive, I have to think about how to say it better. And instead of taking everything she says defensively, I have to try to take it with a grain of salt. Yes, the delivery may be off because in the heat of a moment, people can say things that they don't mean. But you have to take that layer of defense and offense out. And I think that has to do a lot with ego. Because if I take everything defensively, I become defensive at every suggestion or any comment, then that means my ego is a little bit frail. But I take ego out of the picture.
So see the bigger picture, know your intention, take ego out of it, pause. Would that then sound like, hey, Mom, you're eating chocolate again that you just mentioned isn't good for your teeth or revs you up before bed or whatever. Here's a friendly reminder. Don't do it. Like, how does it sound now?
Let me say how it sounds.
Yeah, tell me.
Because I'm the art of it.
I'm
I'm
struggling.
the master of this art. When I see my mom doing that, and that's a real case. Mom, why are you eating sweets? I would say, Mom, you look beautiful, vibrant. Your skin is so nice. You know what? That sugar really does, a number on people. So what do you say, you skip it for a couple more weeks and get an even more brilliant skin and, radiant look. And she said, oh my God, you really think so? I'm like, I know so. It's like, you know what? You're right. Put it away.
Wow.
So you have to have the art of saying things in, like you said, in a way that doesn't even create that, wait a second, is she telling me what to do?
Yeah. A few nights ago, my ex-wife, she wrote a text message that I was reading from a negative perspective, from a defensive perspective. For example, hey, this is Ryan's backpack. There's a hole in it, right? I could have thought to myself 2 or 3 things. One, she's saying this to me to prove to me that I'm a bad dad and I let my son go to school with a ripped backpack. 2, hey, our son needs a new backpack because his backpack is ripped. 3, we may have a rat infestation, right? So I had a choice to choose any one of those things. And it took me literally like maybe less than a second to choose the second one. Hey, our son may need a new backpack. If I share this with, let's say, my good friends.
And by the way, what was the purpose of that picture? At the end, what was it?
I don't care about why she did it. I guess I took it upon myself to think, okay, he needs a new backpack. Not like, oh, you're a bad dad. How can you let this go for 3 weeks? Because if I would have taken it that way, then I think things would have escalated to a point that would have been very unhealthy for everyone. So the fact that she or a client or whoever expresses something to me, I try to take it with the best intention in mind.
Yeah.
If a client says, I need to talk, I'm going to say, oh my God, he wants to cancel. Like, oh, what a fucking weirdo. I don't. I say, okay, maybe he wants to call and tell me how wonderful everything is. And I see that can really change the frequency of people, the way we vibrate, the way they vibrate.
Absolutely.
So if I go in with kindness.
Sorry. Thought that would be silent.
If I go in it with kindness, not weakness. I don't want to say you should be weak in a, not an argument or a confrontation or whatever it may be. But if you go in it as kind, not weak, if you go in it to solve a problem, not add to it, I think that will set the precedence for the rest of that conversation.
Yeah.
Even though the other person may be egging you on, may throw in a few other things, if you don't give it any weight, they become powerless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's got to be more satisfying than triggering the hell out of them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's tempting, is it not, to say, oh, you hit me below the belt, I'll hit you, I don't know, somewhere even more vulnerable.
Yeah.
I don't know where that would be, but yeah, it's tempting.
Yeah.
But not losing yourself in the battle, I think, is even more rewarding than winning the battle, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's this book that I read often these days.
Dictionary?
Yeah. You caught me. I read it a lot because it brings me so much peace. And it's
Bible.
Close. It's called A Course in Miracles. And it's got some biblical shit in there, but mostly it's kind of a manual, a manual, on how to bring love into your experience. And the concept is that life is already a miracle. And it goes through all these limiting beliefs that stop us from seeing that one by one. And one of the principles in the book that's really stuck with me over the past couple of weeks is that there is no such thing technically as rejection. People are always choosing what they believe love is. But if you see the love in yourself and in others, you won't perceive it as a rejection. You'll just be like, oh, they're choosing what they need to choose. I'll choose what I need to choose. Yeah. It's all good. That's not rejection. They're not trying to push me out. They're just trying to choose what they think is better, right or wrong. It's not personal. And I realized that something I do all the time is I anticipate rejection before I even get started. And that includes in conflict, but it also includes in sales calls. It includes in emails. It includes in regular conversations. It includes crushes of the romantic sort. I anticipate rejection, and my mind's pattern is to start believing I've already been rejected. I'm definitely being pushed away right now. They don't want me. They won't use me. I'm no good. I'm inferior. Like, that's where my mind goes. And I have started picking up on it in other people now because I've seen it in me. And I'm realizing if we approach conflict already anticipating that we're going to be rejected or that they're trying to reject us or we're rejecting them, then we've lost.
Yeah.
There's no way to win. And I mean win even in the good way. I mean win even as you have a good conversation and it goes the way you want. It can't happen if you go in with a negative mindset from the jump. Yeah. Thanks for listening to that.
Sure, yeah.
Because I had to really get that off my chest.
All right. The people that I'm dealing with right now, friends, clients,
lovers,
brothers, fathers.
I at one point used to be a king of zingers. Still kind of
I was gonna say at one point.
Yeah. But I realized that's my
Now you're just a prince of zingers.
right. I've let that go and created this more of a peaceful Artavan who doesn't fight a zinger with a zinger. Except if it's my brother, yes, that's free game. But I know a lot of narcissist people are waiting to empty out zingers and get a reaction out of you. I know a lot of them. And the worst thing is to play that game.
Yeah.
To be their victim, because they're looking for someone to make a victim out of. And as long as you stand your ground, as long as you understand the big picture again, pause, take a deep breath, and speak without offending them. And take those zingers without being defensive and just ignoring them sometimes. I think that brings them down from where they are to a point that you can actually have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And just remind them of what is a common goal. Is a common goal for us to live together long term? Is it for us to raise these children as best as we could? Is it to run this business to be the best it can be? And I know everyone's going to have disagreements, but there has to be a point that we stop tugging on those two ends of the string and make that knot even harder to unravel. Because I think most people who go through a divorce, they've tugged on that string so much that it's impossible to unravel. And now they just become angry. Why was he pulling on his end? Well, because you're pulling on yours.
I used to work at a software company. I had a real job. And I would always see there's a whiteboard in the CEO's meeting room. And it said to always keep the teams, the micro teams, super happy. And I didn't know what the fuck that meant. And then I realized, like what my brother's saying, the big picture. If in the software company all the teams are super happy, the micro teams make the macro product superb. Mm-hmm. If one of them is unhappy, the final product becomes shit. So every Friday there was a barbecue. A truck would come, open the back doors. Only the software people would go eat. Not me, not the accountant. Just racism. But no, they kept them super happy because they knew, like he said, for the greater good, you got to make make concessions. You have to say, okay, well, fuck it, man. You guys want ribs every week? You got it, man. You got to get your ribs every week because that's going to keep you happy. And at the end, the big picture wins. Yeah.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Amanda, please bring us home.
Country road.
When I was singing that earlier, I fell into that chair and Artie saw it. I went to sit on the edge and I missed and I fell.
So you were edging
I was
over there?
edging, which is something you could speak to a little bit, right? Don't worry. I'm going to bring us home. Well, friends, in the end, conflict can be very useful if the intention is to actually bring connectivity versus separation and rejection. The attitude with which we enter it makes all the difference. So if you can level set before the conflict, amazing. If you find yourself in the middle of a conflict and you can level set during the conflict in your own head and your own heart, amazing. And if you don't find yourself level setting before or during, you're going to have to level set after. And maybe you'll have to come back around to the person and say, you know what? I'm sorry I acted like such a, like that stuff that's drawn on the board up there.
Okay.
Sorry I acted like such a rude.
A rude.
And I can do better. And that was below me. And let's set the level again and get this straight. And if you decide that the person and that post-conflict, it's not a match. Because here's another thing. I see conflicts happen repeatedly over the same shit. And at that point, I think it's time to get the hint. Go thy separate ways.
Yes. That was going to be my next point, that not every conflict has to be resolved to the, everyone's happy and everyone's, maybe you're happy separate.
Yeah. Yes.
And just because you've been accustomed to being around each other, you're used to one another, like a shark next to the other fishies that eat the leftovers, whatever they're called. You've seen them.
Yeah.
Right? Those sharks.
Cleaner fish.
So they're kind of parasites.
Right? Just because that's the kind of type of relationship you have doesn't mean it's
Good.
a healthy one.
So true.
So, yes, go in it with a common goal to resolve it. But if it's unresolvable, because you two have grown so far apart, cut the cord at that point, because I'd rather be friends with the people that I'm in conflict with than become enemies with them. Yeah. And I think there's a fine line between where you have to pull the plug and where you just go past the expiration date. And I think a lot of people go past the expiration date.
All the time.
And it's no longer going to be, even if you can save it, the milk is still going to be sour.
I don't know what that means, but I like it.
Yeah. Expiration date.
Oh, sorry.
Nice,
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to his masterful.
That was masterful. What do you say about that?
About expiration dates?
Yeah, in relationships. Like if the conflicts just keep...
Yeah, just pull the fucking plug, man. It's like when somebody's on their deathbed and they're just hanging on to like a ventilator and 80 different machines. Pull the plug, man. There you go.
But are people going to be aware enough to pull the plug on a relationship that they think is perfect?
Not if their ego's involved. Not if their ego's involved. And I've seen ego involved for so many different circumstances. The stories we tell ourselves can keep us stuck in these relationships. I know more people not pulling the plug on dysfunctional relationships than I know in functional relationships.
Yeah. Which is actually zero, perhaps.
No, I know a few.
One or two.
Yeah, it's rare. Functional
Well, there's
relationships.
30 or 40 that you know of that must pull the plug, and they haven't.
They haven't. And the way I know that they must pull the plug is because they're actively holding one another back, even in their stagnant comfort zone.
Yeah.
And everyone around them can see it.
Yeah. Except themselves.
Or
maybe
stories.
If you tell yourself the same narrative over and over again, let's say, oh, I have the perfect relationship. I have the perfect, she's such a wonderful person. Then you start believing your own bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's so shallow, that belief.
Yes.
That the next time there's another fight, you're going to go the opposite way.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking bitch,
I think if you ever find yourself even considering pulling the plug, especially after a fight, that's your sign. In a functional relationship, that thought does not come up.
Yeah.
Again, the few functional relationships I know work totally differently. And I guess because people have no examples of them, they don't see it. But if you find yourself wondering, should I? No. Should I? The answer is probably yes. Probably yes.
I mean, if you're having that conversation with yourself, 100% you're right. But if you're just throwing it out there, I want a divorce, you're just trying to force the other person to see it your way and leave you the fuck alone.
Isn't that a bad thing to do? Like, because if you enough time you say, you know what, get your ass out of here, I want a divorce, then after the third or fourth time, it becomes
like,
your reality.
Why are we here?
You're like, why not?
I think it becomes a bargaining chip for some people. Like I said, if you truly believe that and in your heart you're like, you know what, I don't want to do this, or maybe I should, then if you have doubt, it means go. But if you're fighting with somebody in front of them and you just says, oh, you know what, you don't want baked potatoes tonight, you know what, I want a fucking divorce, then you're just using it as a bargaining chip for them to get scared and say, you know what, you're right, whatever you say, we'll have fries with that, okay.
So by keeping a relationship together through manipulation and fear tactics, it's definitely a sign that that relationship should end.
No, that's a fucked up relationship anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, that's regardless of a fucked up relationship.
Right.
But everyone, see, here's the thing though. Another big assumption that we made, that I just made right now, is assuming that everyone wants to grow. And this is an assumption I've lived my life on, and I'm only recently learning, like, Amanda, cool your fucking jets. No, they don't. So you can look around and judge everybody's relationship girly, but some people don't want to be with someone who makes them grow, and they don't want to be with someone who makes them better. They want to be with someone who makes them feel supported, stable, and comfortable. Yeah. And I always forget that. So I'm sorry, world. I just projected.
Yeah, most people stop wanting to grow at age 21.
Oh, shit.
Because at age 21, you get to drink. Oh. And that would be the last milestone of like, why do I need to grow anymore? Yeah. Like, why do I need to change anymore? Take me as I am. And I think
for me, it's age 35. 35 is when I can now become president.
Nice.
Perfect. I love that. I love that. But going back to our lecture at hand.
Yeah.
If you're in conflict with someone.
Yeah.
I guess maybe first you have to assess the big picture. Is it worth it for me to keep this thing going?
Yeah.
Or should I just say, enough is enough. I'm just going to bow out.
Yeah.
If it's worth it, then yes. Look at the big picture. What are the things you guys want to both accomplish? Because I may want to accomplish something that the other person doesn't want to accomplish it.
Yep.
Maybe my importance of that accomplishment is 10 out of 10 versus 5 out of 10.
Yep.
So if it's not on the same page, if we're not vibing the same, towards the same goal, then just pull the plug.
Yep.
PTP.
Take your ego out.
PTP.
Talk without offending. And speak without defending. Yeah. No, the other way.
No, the other way.
You're going to edit this out. So
no, I'm not.
Yes, you
speak without offending, right?
Yeah. Listen without defending.
Yeah. You said it correctly, I think.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I really butchered it.
It's all good.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just goes to show what an empty stomach does to a man's brain.
Yes.
Yes. Thin crust, thick crust, or no crust?
Thick.
That's strange.
Okay. I saw on Instagram that this lady was making crustless pizza. Have you guys seen the crustless pizza?
I don't want it.
That shit,
I don't need to know it.
Was it the one with the fried onions?
That's
dehydrated
called
onions?
Flatbread, bro.
It was onions. It was bell peppers. It was mushrooms.
Yeah.
And she sauteed. She cracked a white egg on it. God. And then she put tomato sauce and mozzarella cheese. And she's like, oh my God.
That is not a pizza in my book.
That's an omelet.
Not to me.
Omelet.
Yeah, it's a bread omelet.
Yeah.
There's no bread in it. It's just an omelet.
I thought there was bread.
No,
there's no bread.
Chopped up vegetables fried with an egg white and then cheese.
Yeah, then that is an omelet.
Pizza.
That's an omelet.
Pizza on my butt.
That's a Mother's Market omelet.
No thanks.
There was a time when I really dug those things.
And now?
I still do, but it just came out wrong and cold so many times in a row that I started to lose my wood for it.
Triple Shot Mindset.